Kayvan Khalatbari of Denver Relief and Denver Relief Consulting and Cresco Labs, among a myriad other things, including Sexy Pizza and Sexpot Comedy, an engine, if you will, of which we are happy to be a part as of this moment. So, had a great conversation with Kayvan, great catching up with him. Enjoy. All right, so we're here with Kayvan once again.
Yes, hello.
Kayvan Part 2, I think we promised such a thing.
Yeah, I think we ran a little long last time and still didn't hit on everything we wanted to, so.
And, we did the background last time, and I feel like it's important to make sure that we understand what you're doing now in totality, because you're a busy guy.
I keep busy. Yeah, I'm trying to make a transition into working a little less in my life. And because of so many things happening, it's taking some time to do that. But we're getting there, making progress.
So you've got just a dramatic incline in the growth of the industry of cannabis that you are, in a pretty important position in. And so understanding that the goal is to work less.
Yes, I think to focus on the things that I'm already involved in that I don't want to let get lost in the shuffle. Normally when you start multiple businesses, the assumption is that one or more of them is going to fail. And fortunately, I've been lucky enough. I've been, I guess, smart enough to surround myself with smarter people than myself, that we've never had a business fail, knock on wood, and been able to persist. But yeah, that gets to be a little too much when they keep growing. So I think getting back to focusing on the core. Denver Relief is the center. It's the oldest dispensary in Denver. It's something that is iconic to us anyways, is the reason we got into all these other businesses. It was the foundation of that. So to make sure that persists and continues forward is really important to us. And then our consulting clients that are really doing some amazing things in Illinois, Nevada, and beyond, we want to be able to make sure that they do as well as we did and that we spend the time that's necessary with them to make sure that they share our successes.
And we talked about Denver Relief and we talked about the consulting, how you actually do choose clients wisely in that area. And we even talked about Sexy Pizza kind of on the way into Denver Relief in your history. But it's not just those things. You've got other things going on. Let's just knock them off one by one so that we can kind of understand the whole scope here. One thing that you were just showing me a couple of issues of, Birdy Magazine. Pretty great looking magazine.
Yeah, I'm biased, but I think it's the best looking magazine in Denver, if not the best magazine in Denver, period. It really has the most honest content. It engages every piece of our community here in Denver. With regard to the artist community, it's not just visual, it's video, it's music, it's comedy. It's just a supporting of things that are honest and real. And it's on its 24th issue. So we're heading into its third year and it's going great. I think we're really starting to hit our stride. I've got great partners that work hard in the arrangement, the distribution, the managing of the artists, the now getting the sponsors on and making it a financially viable thing. It's going really well. We expect to go up into Boulder here shortly, upping distribution and going off into Seattle as well. All of these businesses, whether they be cannabis or comedy, Sexpot or Birdy with art, Sexy Pizza with pizza. We talked about this last time. They're also very synergistic. So they have the opportunity to feed off each other if we do decide to spread and allow them to support each other like they did here in Denver.
So if I'm doing the math right on the 24th issue, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Full 2 years. That would, though, put it exactly, the first issue would have come out the first month of adult use. Is that not right?
Yeah, and the writing was on the wall when that initiative passed. We knew something was coming. There was a year prior to that and a little more than that after it was passed and legalized.
Sure.
They had to make rules. They had to do all this. So there was a lot of excitement in the air about what does legalization mean to Colorado. And we had initially started the magazine with a comic, Ben Kronberg, who's living here in my house now with me temporarily on visit from New York with my brother and I. He's a tremendous talent and is from Denver and has always wanted to keep his cord attached to Denver in the comedy scene here. And we had this idea to do a magazine called Blunt, and it was going to be primarily cannabis focused, but in a more mature way, not the stereotypical way that we got lost into. Not that there's anything wrong with the tie-dye community and classic rock music and great
jam bands,
and
right?
Jam bands and all that. I enjoy most of that myself, but it's not the only part of weed culture. And he is just a different and unique person that I think could have provided a lot of interesting perspective to a project like that. But ultimately, the new partners that came on, we were having trouble getting sponsorship because cannabis was still very much fresh here in Colorado. People didn't know what to make of recreational cannabis. Medical had established itself enough, but that was for medical. And people didn't know what, because, again, Colorado's the first. Yeah. What's this going to look like? People were scared, I think, to put their business dollars, especially because we focus on small businesses that are in line with our values. We're hesitant to put money into it. But now that we've established ourselves as this more traditional, but diverse art in every way with cannabis tinges, we've been able to get that sponsorship. We've proven that we're consistent. We're upping, the distribution, getting more opportunities for events, and just creating more than just a magazine. It really is a community around it that's truly supported by and for artists.
So a few highways instead of one lane type of thing.
Most definitely, yeah. We've got a nice little network being built, and those other businesses really created a lot of inroads in that way as well.
So I want to come back to Sexpot Comedy and kind of do that last, but you've also got the businesses. You've got ownership in some of the licenses. Tell us what you're doing in Illinois, or what you have just done in Illinois.
You bet, yeah. So of the 18 cultivation licenses, I think it's 17 now technically that were issued in Illinois this February. We helped a client, Progressive Treatment Solutions, win one as an advisor. But then our team, our partners, Cresco Labs, we won 3 of the 17 cultivation manufacturing licenses in the state and got the top 3 scores in the state, which was a little bit of a surprise to us. But it's a testament to the type of people we have on our team, the progressive approach that we're taking with regard to environmental stewardship and research intention and community integration and awareness, dealing with just making cannabis, and I hate the word normal, but normal. And showing that this doesn't, it doesn't have boundaries in use and who uses it. It is very similar to alcohol or food. It's really been our goal since that happened, because we do have a very poor program in Illinois for a lot of reasons, very limited qualifying conditions, federal background checks for patients, required fingerprints. There's a lot that's creating hurdles to people getting their cards. So we've really put a lot of money and a lot of time and effort into raising awareness. Started with $1 million ad awareness campaign. The Chicago Marathon was sponsored by Cresco Labs, so this was the first major national sporting event that was sponsored by cannabis business. And just this week, Mindy Siegel, who owns Hot Chocolate in Chicago, James Beard award-winning chef, has created a exclusive edible line for Cresco Labs, which we're going to be starting in Illinois, but hopefully bringing her to Colorado and elsewhere here shortly. So just elevating the game, getting people involved that you wouldn't expect to get involved with this industry, because that's what changes perception and progresses this industry forward.
Yeah, I love that. A James Beard Award winner for your edibles. I mean, where you can't get much higher than that, right?
Yeah, and funny enough, when we were negotiating with her, we had another James Beard Award-winning chef that we were on the line with that was interested as well. So, this is something where we're really seeing the cream of the crop in every industry get involved in this one. But it's important, and I really like this about my role, is that I can keep people honest. I can make sure that people have good information, that good people aren't getting tainted by the bad players in this industry that still persist. They're still very much out there. So
less and less, though.
Very much less and less. But let's say even when the bad players go away, we still have the corporate behemoths to deal with. And a lot of people would say that they may not be the best players.
Right. And that's a very different thing.
And we're dealing with that in Denver. The consolidation here is ridiculous.
And they're dealing with it in Washington as well.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of people that I'll come right out and call them bad players. Some of the bigger brands here in Colorado have been busted several times for using pesticides they knew damn well they weren't allowed to use. They've quote unquote poisoned people by giving them infused products at a county fair or a state fair here when they thought they weren't having, and they weren't allowed to hand out something that was juiced anyways.
Right.
And just the lack of community attention, the lack of being engaged in the policy of this industry, the advocacy in this industry. They're not, and they're all about that bottom line. So someone like myself can come in and being as visible as I can make myself if I choose to, call these people out every once in a while. And things like what I'm doing right now with the Department of Environmental Health here in Denver. I've been sitting on this informal committee for the last 18 months about how can we incentivize the cannabis industry to get more involved in environmental stewardship, understanding the electrical consumption, the waste issues, packaging issues, pesticide use, employee worker safety, because OSHA's not involved in this. There's so many things related to health in the cannabis industry that isn't getting the attention that it needs to. So we've created this committee with them, with other people in the industry, that was actually at the request of the mayor's office, because we're planning a symposium for next spring, which is going to hopefully be a regional thing where we get other municipalities, we get operators, we get regulatory officials, we get ancillary business owners, we get press and media about raising awareness on what exists out there that the cannabis industry can do to be more environmentally friendly right now. And what do we do to solve some of the problems that exist if there isn't a solution for it? And you get so locked into a bubble in this industry that, it's not that you don't want to do good, it's that you don't know how because you're too busy trying to keep up with constantly changing regulations and fees and competition and market. It's not easy in this industry. So this is a way for people to communicate, collaborate, and hopefully come up with some solutions to some of the problems that Denver's very much feeling right now, but the rest of the country is going to feel very quickly because it's spreading so fast.
Absolutely. And if Denver's going to change regulations and change rules this quickly and this often, so will the other legal states. As Colorado goes, so goes the nation.
Very much so. We're still, because even though a lot of other markets are coming online, they haven't been tried and tested yet. Colorado's been there the longest and therefore has the most data, it has the most examples, it has the most scenarios, and the most evolution. So it's always going to be looked at that until, we do have some more traction in places like Washington and Oregon, and they've gotten their feet under them like we do. And we're not perfect here, but we are serving as a great example, showing what to do right or wrong, or how things can be done right or wrong.
So just to interrupt, there's another thing, by the way, with the Energy Committee, and I know you didn't call it an Energy Committee, this is just another thing that you're doing. I mean, how many different businesses or committees do you think that you're a part of?
So businesses having, some level of ownership and interaction with, it's between 15 and 20. If I count my boards and committee positions, I sit on the board of directors for the National Cannabis Industry Association, the Nevada Cannabis Industry Association, the Illinois Cannabis Industry Association, both of which are official state affiliates of the national.
Sure.
I'm a founding council member on the Council on Responsible Cannabis Regulation, which
Steve Fox, right?
Steve Fox formed, who's one of my heroes in this industry.
Sure.
To help spread. Doing exactly what we've done here in Colorado, but also looking at what the rest of the world and this country's done and giving regulators a fair shake on what's working and what's not and what we would recommend for a successful program. Because if it's happening anyways, a successful program, everybody wins. If it fails, you only see a lot of fingers pointed, and it's harder to unravel that than it is to just make one successful in the first place. I sit on the board of the Colorado Youth Symphony Orchestra here in Colorado, which is more of the arts involvement, which I love.
You got the kids, of course.
I mentor for Denver kids. I have 3 kids, one of whom I've been with for 6 years. I'm official guardian of all of them once their 83-year-old adoptive mother passes. So, she's a strong woman. She's got siblings older than her, so I think she's going to hang on for a little while. But that's definitely looming in the rear view.
So including children, what I'm counting like 20, 25 different initiatives. Those who know you, those who've been in the same room with you, it's not a very high energy. It's not a very kinetic energy coming off of you. How do you keep your brain organized to be able to effectively deal with 25 different initiatives?
Well, mentally and internally, cannabis certainly helps. As a very anxious person.
So you are an anxious person.
I am anxious naturally.
Okay.
But it's definitely internalized. When I publicly speak, I sweat. I don't shake. It certainly is a testament to the quality of people around me, not just in their intelligence, because I certainly have a lot of people that I would put on my level, in that we aren't schooled people. I have an associate's degree in architectural engineering. What the hell is that? How the hell is that applicable to this?
Yeah, that's basically the only thing you're not using.
Exactly. But still in the construction of these facilities.
Oh, right. Sure, of course. Yeah.
So it all comes back around. But at the same time, I don't have any traditional formal business experience. I never had a mentor. Don't have a fancy degree in it. It was self-taught, and that's the same thing for a lot of the people around me. We came from the engineering field, or we came from the food industry or the real estate industry, or running our parents' nursery, or just being someone that is taking a shot on something and has never really done anything their entire life, or some defined thing. We're a hodgepodge of people, but our common denominator is we're all very passionate about what we do. And when all of these businesses and things that I do are synergistic, like we talked about earlier, it helps that passion bleed in to other people. And all my partners that didn't know each other before, I don't know that they feel like partners, but I think they trust each other, and there's a level of commitment to propping each other up. And I think the same thing goes for the people that support our businesses as patrons, and I think we instill that in our employees too.
So that was going to be my next question, which is what is the thread that runs through all of the initiatives, and what you're saying is that it is passion.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. We're people that I think a lot of us have always kind of felt like we never got a fair shake, or that things have been a little more difficult than they should have been, or
and they still are, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's life.
Yeah,
Life's
exactly.
difficult. Deal with it. If you walk around being sad about it or frustrated with it all day, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just being well-intending, being passionate, and working hard, and good things happen. It's no coincidence that I think most people that are in a position of authority, in a good way, in an influential and inspirational way, these people that give TED Talks, and the people that you would look at as being inspired, whether it be entrepreneurship or in a spiritual sense or whatever, they really are well-intending people that work hard, and those are the visible people you see, I think, because they're proud of it and they want to try to encourage that in other people and promote that, because there are obviously a lot of people that make a lot of money in a lot of bad ways. They generally tend to hide from the limelight. You see when they come up from the surface, it's like Donald Trump, like
that guy. It's amazing what's happening. My God. I mean, we're sitting here in December 2015. Wow. But let's not discuss that. One person that I think kind of fits the description of what you're talking about is a guy that I think I saw a picture of you with, which is Ethan Nadelman.
Oh, yeah. Talk about heroes. Him and Steve Fox are really, I would say, my kind of... I know Steve a lot better than Ethan. Ethan, I've had several conversations with, shared emails and ideas and things like that, but I've never really truly collaborated with Ethan. That's a goal of mine in life, I think. But he is just someone that is immensely passionate about the drug war, and understands it as good as anyone does, as well as anyone does, has more influence, and people listen to him, I think, more than anybody in the nation or in the world with regard to drug policy.
Well, he does know how to talk about it.
He does, and he incites. He gets people excited.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the plenary, I believe is what they call it, at the Drug Policy Alliance when they're opening up, and he was part of that opening speech. And he raises his voice appropriately when he should, but he still sounds in control and intelligent when he does it. And there's very few people that can do that, I think. But he gets people excited. He got standing ovation. You don't hear people talk about drug policy a lot. And when you do, you generally don't get the reaction that you get when he speaks. But it all comes from his just passion. He's got a drive for force. Him and Neil Franklin are two people that, man, those guys, two of the most emotional and passionate people I've ever met on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken with Ethan. We've spoken with Steve Fox, of course.
You should talk with Neil, though. That guy, He's amazing.
Well, we'll have to do that next. Yeah. So, that kind of brings us to Sexpot Comedy. I know that there are other companies that you have investments in and things like that. Is there anything that rises up to, the Denver Relief Consulting, the Sexy Pizza, the boards that you spoke of, anything else besides Sexpot Comedy that, is something that you're more involved with other than ownership? Well, what kind of question is that, I guess, right? You're involved in all of them. That's the whole point.
So I had my failed city council run this year.
Right. We didn't talk about that.
We didn't.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran for an at-large seat here in Denver for city council. There's 13 seats, 11 districts that are broken up per population. And there's 2 at-large seats, which are essentially for the whole city representative of. And I ran for one of those against 2 incumbents, 2 women, one of which had been a city council person for 2+ decades. I ran a 2-month campaign with less money than both of them, with less visibility. I was out of town working on applications and helping Illinois and Nevada clients all along the way.
Which you won, by the way.
Which we did win.
Yeah. In the loss, there were wins.
There were certainly wins, without a doubt. I came in 5th out of 5, but I still garnered about 12,000 votes. And I ran an honest campaign. I swore at forums. I called people out. I wasn't the polite competitor that had just been the status quo. You go to these forums and there's always the people that aren't supposed to win try to almost be too formal. They try to be too rigid to try to try to fit in with these robot politician people. When I think what people ultimately want is some and that's back to Trump. That's why people like him. He's
Absolutely.
honest.
He's just
whether he's right or wrong or
Yeah.
fucked in the head, he's honest.
Yeah.
And he says what he thinks. And I think people really appreciate that and they want that. They want some brutal honesty. And that's really what I was. And we used Birdy, we used Sexy Pizza, we used Denver Relief and the cannabis community at large to support it, but it didn't win. But there are a lot of issues that I pushed for that needed to get talked about that Denver is really dealing with right now, such as homelessness and the lack of affordable housing. I mean, rent has doubled in pretty much every place around Denver in the last 18 months.
Yep.
So people are getting pushed. All these artists and service people that support my businesses are getting pushed out to the suburbs, making life even more difficult for them and less colorful and vibrant. And there's drug policy in general. There's the Harm Reduction Action Center, working with Neal Exchange and naloxone administration. They've done some tremendous things in the legislature here in Colorado to push forward drug policy and harm reduction and treating all drugs and prostitution as a public health concern and not one of criminality, because we only make it worse if we throw people in jail. So the theme is people, right? Yeah. I mean, the theme is what can I do to get involved here in the private world that I can't do publicly now, obviously, but I think I can be more powerful in the private world and engage more people and gain more trust. So working with some of the groups right now, I have this collective that I formed, which is really the long-term goal is to create businesses that are all incestual and own each other, and they're owned by all these different people with disciplines and backgrounds and acumens that all prop up each other. But until then, it's an awareness initiative that is here to say these are problems and we're not focusing on them because there's so many people moving here that don't understand them. But a lot of people that are moving here because they want to make a difference and they got tired of the places that they live being so conservative or something. People want to get involved here, they just need to know about it, and they do have money to do something about it.
So if you're focused on private, does that mean we're giving up on the public face of Kayvan?
Not at all, but I think I have a lot more building to do in my community. This city's grown tremendously in the last 3 years, and with me being on the road a lot the last 3 years, I've lost a little bit of my visibility. But with the businesses we have now, and a lot of them being in entertainment and cannabis and food and all these social initiatives, I'm going to get that visibility again, and I'm going to hopefully ignite and engage people in my own way. And I think I could see me doing something in 4 years from now, maybe. Who knows?
Okay. Well, so then you speak of entertainment. That brings us to Sexpot Comedy. Obviously, Sexy Pizza and Denver Relief combined for what you've got with comedy. But why the focus on comedy? What brought you in there to begin with?
So when Sexy Pizza and Denver Relief were really infant. I wouldn't say infant. They're in their teens.
Okay.
Where you're kind of hitting some roadblocks. We didn't have any business experience, so getting a business operating at a certain level is one thing. Making it profitable is one thing, but actually making it as profitable as it can be is another. But managing that with being socially responsible and being good to your employees and doing all these things was interesting for us. But we tried a lot of avenues to market, to increase business, to really push through and to grow revenue. And we started getting involved in a lot of print advertising. And one ad in particular was kind of the turning point in my what is now a disdain for print media, which is interesting about Birdy and why it's so different. We put an ad, this would have been 3.5 years ago, for Sexy Pizza in the Westward, which has about 100,000 distribution here. It's the Village Voice paper locally. We put a little quarter-page ad. It's pretty much a yellow book anymore. It's just full of ads. There's barely any content in it anymore. But we put a quarter-page ad in with the coupon, and I had 2 stores at that point, 2 Sexy Pizzas, and we waited for something to come back from it. We paid $900, I think, right? Got 3 coupons back. I'm like, $900 for 1 week to get 3 coupons back. Like it seems like a gross waste of money.
Well, it's definitively a gross waste of money.
Very, very, very much so, right? So I started to think, I had started to go to comedy shows because I had just friends that had gone to some of these smaller shows, the Deer Pile above City O City, operated by the Fine Gents now. They do a weekly show, which is the longest running in the state, almost 4 years now, I think. Good friends of mine now, but them and Matt Monroe with Propaganda. He's done a show down at Laney's Clock Tower on the 16th Street Mall for a long time, a stand-up showcase. They came to me and asked if I would be interested in sponsoring their comedy shows. And I was like, oh, how much is it? And, it was like, it ended up amounting to me paying more for the Westward ad for that 1 week than it cost to sponsor these guys 5 to 6 shows a month.
The whole show.
For 2 months.
Right, the whole shows. Right.
And I'm thinking
2
about
2 months of shows. Right.
Thinking about the audience that is the Westward. It goes up to Boulder. It goes to Colorado Springs. It's everywhere. It's not central. Sexy Pizza is central. And when I think about the people that are in the audiences at these shows are in our delivery area. These shows are in the neighborhoods of the people that eat at Sexy Pizza. And when you add the people up, there's 50 to 100 people at every Fine Gents show. There's 100 at probably. That's let's say there's almost 1,000 people every 2 months that we're putting a banner in front of, getting a stage mention, and being known for sponsoring something that they appreciate and love and respect and want there. We found a better return there. We couldn't quantify it in a coupon returning, but we could feel an energy around it and knew that people loved the fact that we supported it. And that's how Sexpot Comedy started, with sponsoring shows and getting that kind of collective mentality with bringing people into the fold. And that kind of manifested itself with the cannabis in these live cannabis consumption shows that we did at Sexy Pizza South Pearl that were very speakeasy feeling, and they were speakeasies, and they were just ahead of their time. Now a lot of people do kind of cannabis things, but they weren't done with that professionals. We had people, headliners, leave Comedy Works and come do this because it was the weird show to do while they were in town. And the alt room. The alt room, it really was. Yeah. And to do it in that cannabis space, that created its own talking points and its own conversation that the stand-up, the comedians could use in their material. So it just kind of grew, and it gained a following, and now we do those showcases at Three Kings and then at the Oriental Theater. Our next one, I know this is coming out in the new year, but our Christmas show, it's our 3rd holiday show in a row, and they've been just great and cannabis friendly in a very large open theater. It's wonderful. So
you've got those large open theater cannabis friendly shows, but that's not all.
No, we've got 40 shows a month in New York, in Denver, LA, Chicago. We're doing a cannabis consumption show at Creek and Cave in New York next month with Information, Brent Gill's show here, who's been probably the longest running cannabis comic, maybe Dick Black too here in Colorado. Has been doing it since I've been involved in cannabis. So I've known Brent for 10 years as a comedian in and around the cannabis industry. So to be able to support him now is pretty cool in any fashion. But we have 15 podcasts now that are in our network. We have and they started off as all comedy, but they're starting to bleed the line of more traditional content, because we do really want to create a separate podcast network from this breadth of content that we're getting put together. And
I could and would be sitting here even if that wasn't the case, but that is a reason that we're sitting here.
It is, yeah. We very much want to, again, expand that content, but keep it aligned with and synergistic with the content that we do have. Obviously, what you do with interviewing people that have really helped give birth to the cannabis industry here, is a great addition to that, because that is what has fueled a lot of the content that we currently have in the more artistic form, with our comedy and we have a book podcast and things of that nature. So to continue adding that, to have something that is so diverse, that is national, and that is on a topic that's very near and dear to my heart and very synonymous with Sexpot, is pretty important to me.
So we've got a bunch of podcasts, we've got a bunch of shows, and they're not necessarily all cannabis friendly, right? There are some straight shows in there.
Definitely. It's dependent on the venue. There's with those 40 shows, probably 24 venues that are in the mix, and not all of them feel that they want to take that risk.
Right.
But I will say that most of them are pretty tolerant. So understanding there's a huge public consumption conundrum here in Denver and Colorado, with telling all these people from other states and countries that they can come here and purchase cannabis, but not giving them a place to consume it, is an issue.
Indeed.
It's creating a public a nuisance issue. We've had consumption and public use tickets go up 600 or 700% in the last couple of years. Hotels aren't allowing it because they're large national chains. Small bed and breakfasts or smaller hotels aren't putting a dent in the millions of people that are coming here.
6 or 7 rooms or whatever, right?
Yeah, and even if you have 6 or 7 rooms, depending on what law presides, Colorado Clean Under Air Act disallows like 70% of hotel rooms from being smoked in. So there's a lot of hurdles there, and there are clubs that exist that persist, like Sexpot Comedy shows, but some more formal clubs even that are getting shut down, that are in danger of getting shut down, simply for doing something that we should have the right to do. You can go to a bar and drink alcohol, and that leads to far more social problems, far more violence. 1 in 7 Coloradans working age, CDC study, die of alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
So to not give us that option is crazy. But yeah, we don't all, because we also understand this transitional period that we're in, and we can't force this on people.
Nope. And look, we've stumbled our way into the consumption issue, just like that. Right?
Yeah, just like that. So speaking of Steve Fox, we had the limited social use initiative that we had collected enough signatures for here in Denver to put it on the ballot. And it was going to be on the ballot, except that we got pressured by the city and county of Denver, the mayor's office, the city council, I believe the police were involved in it somewhere, all sorts of business associations, the downtown partnership, because the language in it was vague purposefully. That worried them. They're like, what is this going to be? It was done so quickly that there wasn't enough time to get a lot of education around what it actually meant, that people thought the worst. And they said, oh my God, I'm a restaurant owner. People are just going to be smoking pot at the table. There's not going to be anything I can do about it. Like, that's not the case. Are you kidding me? Like, you have discretion. It's a private business. You could say no.
Yeah.
But people didn't understand that because there wasn't enough time to educate. There wasn't enough time to raise money and get that public awareness out there.
Right. You didn't have Steve and Mason running around town doing this and this and this for months and months and months before it got on the ballot, and then we could all vote on it knowingly. Exactly. You guys were too good, too quick on this one and surprised people, and you can't surprise people.
Yeah. And, Steve Fox is a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And part of extending any conversation and finding success in that conversation is just keeping it in the public space.
Sure.
Keeping it in the conversation.
We'll fail once or twice. Why not?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, because after that loss, there's going to be so many people that analyze that. And is that true? Is that not? You're gonna get more news stories about it. You're going to get more neighbors talking about it, family members talking about it. And after you actually have this discussion, because it is such an honest one, people are like, yeah, why didn't we legalize it?
Yeah.
That the sky has not fallen in a place where it's legalized. The opiate overdoses and use is down, and tourism's up, and money's up, and schools are getting money, and sick people are getting. We're like, what are we scared about? And we're starting to see factual experiences, data around all of this, and you just can't ignore that. All of the opposition is really losing any sort of weight in their conversation. And you're starting to see, actually, and it's interesting here in Colorado, there's a group called SMART Colorado by Christian Thurstone. I mean, they're truly nutcases. I don't think intentionally. I think they know exactly what they're doing, but it makes them feel good about themselves that people will listen to them, even if it's for reasons that are nonsensical. But you're starting to see people like Thrive Colorado break apart from them and say, guys, you're being way too conservative on this issue. Yeah. So these conservative drug policy people are breaking off from the most conservative, saying, we're going to go find some middle ground here. And what this Thrive group does, and I don't even know if they're still in operation, but the thought I really liked was not just say no to drugs. It was drugs are. And it was drugs are going to persist. They're going to exist forever. We need to find a way to talk to people about them, to educate them, to provide public social services around their use, around their rehabilitation, and not throw people in jail. And we need, if we educate and have an honest discussion about what they do to you, that problem will improve. Because under the drug war, drug use hasn't changed.
Well, and what's interesting is that numbers that I have seen is that in communities where cannabis is legal, teen use is down because it's legal. So if I'm a teen, why would I want to do it? It's legal.
That's another CDC study. Teen use has dropped or stayed steady in Colorado for the last 3 years. In my opinion, and I think alcohol is kind of in this boat as well, cigarettes too, cannabis is an old person drug. Kids don't want to smoke cannabis. They're doing these new designer drugs and psychedelics and ecstasy and all of this. And what do kids get from pot? You know, it's almost being viewed at, and rightfully so, as an herbal supplement. I mean, does it have some exaggerated effects over most things you're going to buy? Does it need to be, you know, not necessarily regulated? Because I'm of the far reach that, you know, just like beer brewers, we should have the ability to grow it in our backyard if we want, whether a law exists or not, right? And that I won't ever press that right now because I get the point of baby steps and progress over time.
Sure.
But, you know, at the same time, it is really truly that benign. As long as you educate about what it is, you educate people about managing its use. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable. No one wants to get too high. Like, you just need to teach them what is appropriate and what isn't. And it's not like alcohol where if you consume too much, you become violent.
Or die.
You die. You do things you wouldn't normally do.
Kill other people with a car.
People, yes. You pass out. Or you maybe have to go to the emergency room because you were really dramatic about it and didn't understand what you were getting yourself into, but not understanding that no matter how uncomfortable you feel, nothing's going to happen.
And the reason that I was being hyperbolic with my language just there is to kind of come back out into the consumption thing and say, you know, hey, if we've got bars, let's just go ahead and consume cannabis just like we do alcohol, because there shouldn't be an issue here.
Yeah, sorry I veered off there.
That's fine. I went down the rabbit hole with you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
So what the initiative essentially should have been or could have been or what the reality would have been had it passed would have meant that if you have a bar or a restaurant where the owner chose to allow it, that maybe there's a designated area inside where you could vaporize or consume edibles. Maybe there's an area outside that's out of public view that's set back from the front entrances that is 21 plus only, inside and out at these venues. And that is where cigarette smoking can be allowed. If all these things exist, then you can smoke cannabis too and combust. It's still up to that bartender, that business owner, to understand that the people that they're serving are capable of consuming more alcohol or cannabis. And they have the right to ask them to leave. They have the right to, you know, it's the same rules apply. It's just like the safer message from the beginning is that if cannabis is that much safer and that people aren't going to die simply from its consumption, we're not going to have these aggressive attitudes. If people choose to use that, why shouldn't they be allowed to? Yeah. And it just put them on an level playing field. Let people choose whichever they want. And I think we're going to find if we allow that to happen, that more time than not, people are going to choose cannabis.
Well, that's like just your opinion, man.
Or it is. I love opinions. Or they're just going to consume less alcohol.
Right.
And that's something, I think that I've seen that in my life where I don't drink a ton, but I drink a lot less now that I can feel comfortable consuming cannabis in more places.
Or from the state's perspective, they have more of an opportunity to take some cannabis tax money, right?
Heck yeah. I mean, you know, whatever we need to do to get this legal, because it is what it is. I think we're gonna see those taxes drop off. We're gonna see those license fees diminish over time, because what we're gonna see is when California comes online,
oh boy,
that medical market is 5 times larger than Colorado's recreational market.
I just said this. The total amount of dispensaries in Los Angeles is more dispensaries than anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that, California is one of the largest economies in the world, let alone one of the, it's by far the largest in this country. And when you think about its impact on cannabis and what it's meant to cannabis already, there's a lot of very proud people there, and there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of history and culture there. There's the ability to go outside, which you don't have in a lot of places in this country, and to do it so well, just like wine. And they become known for Sonoma and Napa and yada yada. It's going to make a massive impact. So what's Colorado going to have to do to compete for that cannabis piece of it? Is tourism necessarily going to decline in Colorado? Probably not, because people still like skiing. They still like doing all these things. But I think people are going to be less interested in cannabis in Colorado. And maybe some people would say that's a good thing. But I think it's definitely going to mean less money for the state, not only because less people are purchasing here, but because we've had to lower those prices to be competitive and to keep businesses here. This industry, if you don't, count the cannabis businesses themselves, but all the ancillary and adjacent industries and construction and security and packaging and all of these things that exist because of the cannabis industry, we're talking tens of thousands of jobs. Yeah. And when you think about those jobs maybe leaving because you're not competing, Colorado will compete. We're smart. We're an entrepreneurial state.
Yeah. Difficult, but smart.
It is. That's life. We're becoming a traditional industry that has probably way too many components, and our minds are going to spin, and it's going to be confusing, and we're still going to make mistakes because nobody's ever ushered this in like this kind of product with that prohibition prior to it. So it's going to be interesting, is all I can say. So I would love to be able to focus on that, maybe have some foresight, which is, coming full circle, one of the reasons for kind of limiting my role in finding new opportunities going forward, focusing on the things that are in front of me and the task at hand, because there's a lot here.
There you go. With all of those things and with that goal for your focus, what do you think 2016 is going to look like? And by that, I mean, when you and I sit down this time next year, what are we going to have talked about? In other words, what are you going to have accomplished? What are some of your goals to make sure get done by the end of the year next year?
Well, Illinois, I want to see that program expand, because people that have put $15 to $20 million into a cultivation business can't succeed with 3,300 patients spread amongst them.
Yeah. And you mentioned, limited conditions. What I found interesting, I read how many conditions there are. There are many conditions. It's just that they're so explicit and so specific.
Yeah, so there's two ways that people go about putting language into these bills. It's either conditions or symptoms, or some are both. Symptoms are much more broad, right? A lot of people feel symptoms for different reasons. And that's why the symptom model is way better. If I think about myself, I think we talked about this last time. I use it for anxiety and depression and sleeplessness and appetite. None of those are things I can go get my card for in Colorado. Right. I can go to the store or to the doctor and get a pill that I'm going to take for those things. That's going to give me nausea. Then I can go get my cannabis card.
You got to get the pharmaceuticals first to get you to the cannabis.
Why can't I just go straight to the cannabis? But I have to go in and get it for a non-union bone in my foot or a herniated disc in my back, which are very real things.
Sure.
They cause me pain that cannabis definitely helps with, but those bother me once a month. I deal with anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and appetite every day.
Every damn day, I think, as we discussed.
Every damn day. So, a lot of these conditions are rather arbitrary. And they're based in the fact that there is some study somewhere, somebody whispered in somebody's ear that this should be on it. They're not based in any sort of overall consideration for the fact that is a medicine anything that makes you feel good and probably shouldn't destruct what you do, like shouldn't remove an ability. And a lot of medicines do that. A lot of pharmaceuticals do that.
Sure. Just watch the commercials.
Right. They'll tell you that you can die.
Right. Or at least that you'll pee yourself.
Yeah. So I'm excited to raise that awareness in Illinois. And that's really where this comes from. I mean, when you have enough people on the ground, friends in the legislature, you have these regulators that are well informed. If you can truly make them understand that is the issue, that it's not us just trying to make money. It's not us just trying to sell cannabis to people. We're trying to help people, but you're locking people out because they don't fit your arbitrary list. And I think once you really do that and you give them stories of people that are being negatively affected, PTSD is a massive one here in Colorado. how can you not listen? And how can you not do something about that? The problem in Illinois is we have a pilot program that started when pretty much the regs were released, not when the businesses started operating. So we've burned through half that pilot program already. So there's a lot at stake there. Other things I'm excited for 2016 with Nevada for recreational to pass. That's going to be a game changer, just like California is. But Nevada's going to do it on an international level, more so, I think.
Well, the international ramifications because of the reciprocation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to become more of a loud cultural hub for it. I think like public consumption and all that is going to be kind of a mecca there. But that's going to happen. And we have 2 vertically integrated businesses that we own in Las Vegas that we're part owners in. That's exciting.
Sure.
So making sure that does happen and being an advocate for that to pass, because as much as I believe in the medical program and as much as I believe our clients and partners are going to continue to pursue that and make sure that those people are taken care of, because especially with one of my groups, they're giving most of their profits away to charity. They have 2 disabled children that are in their 40s now that they got into this for. And that's their drive. And that's always going to be maintained. But I also understand that, hey, we've got probably 20,000 people in Nevada that are getting arrested every year for cannabis possession.
Right.
That shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So there are bigger things at play, I think. And that's going to be fun. And then Sexpot taking it nationally and really growing big. We're doing some pitches for some national networks here pretty soon for some TV shows. We're talking with a group of gentlemen who have taken several shows, very popular shows right now, to network and gotten the long running shows. So people that have experience that I'm not privy to, that I don't understand that world fully. My business partner Andy Jewett does a whole hell of a lot more than I do, but even he's naive to some of these, just the people that have been in that corporate environment for 20 years. Like, it's a different animal. It's a different world.
Sure.
So finding good people that we trust to hold our hand kind of through that process, I think we're going to do some big things. I would be very surprised if Sexpot hasn't produced or created or directed a TV show on cable television in the next 18 months, 12 to 18 months.
Well, we're looking forward to that, certainly, right?
Yeah. So that's the goal of mine, but really Sexpot, getting back into the culture of it a little bit. I've got a great balance of advocacy, of business, of policy work, and the kind of the governmental piece of it. But I want to be a part of the cultural, the fun part of it too. And if we can do that progressively, responsibly, and in a fun way that supports artists and all of these things that we do with Birdy and Sexpot, then everybody wins.
Absolutely. And I love it. And those are great answers, and I can't wait. Last time we asked you the 2 final questions that we had at the time, which is what's most surprised you in cannabis and what's most surprised you in life. You answered those questions. You didn't get a chance to answer our new final question, which is on the soundtrack of Kayvan's life. Name one track, name one song that's definitely on there. That's got to be on there. So I'm hitting you with that question. Didn't even warn you at all. And what comes to mind?
Man, that is a tough one. I always have a lot of difficulty with music questions. Not because I don't listen to music or love music. I listen to it all the time. But it's a Muddy Water up there.
So
not Muddy Waters though.
We could just go Manish Boy and end it. We could go Hoochie Coochie Man. We could go any Muddy Water song.
That's very true. That is very true.
You're in Chicago, for Christ's sake, right?
This is very true. It would be very fitting. Oh man, I don't know if I can answer that question without exposing. No, I'm just kidding.
And we're going to leave on this thinking, because this is, for some people, the most difficult thing to find. An appropriate question, because this does speak to how important entertainment is, because you take this answer personally. Like, you have to answer this right, because if you need to give the Kayvan answer. That's why we ask it.
I don't know if maybe it's not the best answer. I think it's the one that fits. I was trying to think about a song that had to do with change that I appreciated. I think a change is going to come. Sam Cooke.
Okay.
And just because I think that my life has been perpetual change. Yeah. And I think whether it was ultimately about this or not, just like that perpetual nature of it, and no matter how good things are, no matter how bad things are, no matter how much in between they are, they're going to go in the other direction at some point. and you're going to have to deal with it. And you can't get comfortable, and you just can't trust that what you have today is going to exist tomorrow. So being malleable, being ready to act, I think is probably the most appropriate for my life.
Expect the change.
Yes, very much so.
Kayvan, thanks so much again.
Thank you, Seth.
And there you have Kayvan Khalatbari. Neglected to mention Birdy Magazine, as you just heard in the intro. But, that guy has got his hands in so many different things. We're happy to be a part of Sexpot Comedy. Seems like that's just waiting to take off. So here we go.